We're going to I remind you that our live streams are up on YouTube, Facebook, and on X this morning, and also for us to understand that as we continue in our debates and our conversations, that we want to make sure that we're speaking in truth. Public appointments versus professional qualifications is something that we're looking at now. And I know that the words have been flying around like experts and things like this. And if you're able to manage an office, then is expertise required? If you're able to manage an office, is expertise required? Expertise like what you go to school to learn and then practice and then, hone a skill. We're talking about that today with Daniel Orogo, who's a political analyst and is already in the hot seat this morning. Good morning, Daniel.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Karibu sana.
Asante.
Yeah, thank you for being here this morning.
Good.
Soon to be joined by Stella Agara, who is a governance and security analyst, and we'll talk about all of this with her as both of you as we join this morning. Dennis is going to share today's proverb with you. We'd love to get your interpretation of it.
Our proverb today comes from Gabon, former French colony, and the country is rich in resources, including natural and nuclear reactor. Just God decided, Gabon, chukua hiyo. As others struggle to get uranium to develop that, them they just have it. But the proverb that we get from the country today, a canoe does not know who is king. A canoe does not know who is king. How would you interpret it? And canoe nile row your boat, that one.
A canoe doesn't know who is
King.
Well, I think that could be interpreted to me. It's like, as you route through, probably you might not get a clear understanding of how the whole view of your pavilion is ahead, or rather, what does it take for one to be crowned in that particular pace of race? So I think it's quite difficult in that point of uncertainty to clearly know what happens at the end of the day. What is the larger picture? What is the win like? Because in the midst of that particular storm, in the midst of that particular rowing, you really never know, what comes out at the end, or what is the bigger picture, or what is the crowning at the end of the rowing, rather.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well said, well put, and I must say that lapel looks.
So, when we look at appointments, even as we start this conversation up at this time, when we look at appointments and we look at
Mm.
qualifications, should there be public appointments versus professional qualification? We know what is out there in the public arena about whether or not folks are getting positions based on the position that they took politically. Should the two intermarry, or should we say they must work at parallels completely?
Well, I think as I was brainstorming about this, throughout yesterday, today in the morning, I am conflicted in a sense that it also brings into a conversation whether leaders are made or whether leaders are born. That sometimes, do we have those inherent qualities, that definitely pushes us to certain political, to certain leadership position or certain appointment positions. And as I was looking at this, we have probably seen people who have ascended into political position or positions that are very important, and yet they probably might not have gone through the real channel, of being socialized or being educated or going through a mentorship through that. You have seen a number of, leaders globally who thrived on skills and, who thrived on different categories and knowledge, not necessarily taken through, those rigorous points of getting towards those career positions. But again, in the thinkers of our constitutional order, or the thinkers of the makers of our constitution, might have had something in their mind. And, they might have said that for you or for a certain leader to ascend into this political position or this appointment position in public service, for example, that the qualities are so in this, and one must go through, education, one must meet certain merits. Yeah, we have a thin line of, with the experience that people who have actually thrived in their positions without necessarily going through those certain, rigorous process or educational process or criteria, but still thrive in their position. Yet, we also have those who had, gone rigorously through those processes and have gone through, academics and learned through this position. But once they are sent to this position, we've not been able to get, quality positions. How many, for example, governors do we have in this country that, are technocrats, for example? Are qualified or, are merit-based. But if you look at their track record, there is little to show, But instead also, on the other side, how many of us do we have leaders who did not go through serious mentorship and training in this position, but yet have really delivered on them? So it's a matter of, conversation and a point of conflict. But then we cannot certainly say that indeed there's no clear path to clear way to this. Yes.
Okay. Sophie's getting, Stella's getting seated, but we're going to throw the question at her. Good morning, Stella.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Great.
Yes. We were just hearing that it's necessary to have a clear demarcation between political reward and professional qualifications when it comes to positions that require movement, implementation, especially in a country setting. What are your thoughts around this?
And our law has actually anticipated that and provided for ensuring that there's first of all merit in appointment, but also making sure that the different people who are appointed in different positions actually qualify for the work that they're selected to do. Indeed, there's a remnant of people within our government and within our politics who still believe in servicing patronage networks, and so they will find their friends and want to appoint them anywhere as long as an opportunity is available, just so that they can reward themselves. I think some of the examples we have seen of the appointments that have been quashed by our courts, it's not something that started now. I think we saw this all the way from the time of Kibaki, when there were some appointments that were actually quashed by the courts, and then eventually they had to go back to the drawing board. It's just that our politicians need to wake up from the old way of thinking, where they can appoint just anybody on any position for the sake of servicing patronage networks, forgetting that there are certain tasks that require specific qualifications, specific skills to be able to accomplish.
You look at appointments, and I'm just going to go for the cabinet secretary positions that we've seen happen in the country. And the requirements is one needs to be apolitical, needs to be bipartisan, and needs to be a technocrat in the department or agency within which they're being employed. Why? So that they're able to apply their total expertise in that sector. I'm just going to go for the jugular, for example, and I'm going to compare. If you look at, say, other jurisdictions, if someone is cabinet secretary, minister for health, they are a health expert, someone who can even stand and call a president, announce to the nation that a president has died, because they were the first responders and can confirm that to a country. We look at our situation today, we have cabinet secretary in the Ministry of Health who, can they even inject anything? Can they hold a scalpel or differentiate the same, And we look at how this individual is coming to manage professionals in that sector, and they do not have the gusto to do that. How does that then affect the provision of services to wananchi?
Dennis, why are you doing that to us? Why would you send us to the Ministry of Health? Are you really trying to depress us this morning? I'm glad you went there, because that's one of the state departments that has one of the most unqualified people in office.
You don't say.
I don't say, and I just want to throw a spanner in the works. There are other state departments that have very qualified people, like Treasury, and the individual who is qualified for the job is busy politicking. He's busy running around getting crowned to be the kingpin. He's busy running around to focusing on political party business instead of focusing on the work he's supposed to do. He has been reminded by the media, by citizens of Kenya who care about how he conducts himself in public office. and I guess he's asking us mtadu. I think we need to begin focusing on how that impacts on, first of all, service delivery to Kenyans, because it definitely stands in the way of delivery of quality services. It stands in the way of the amount of time that the public servants have to actually deliver the service they're supposed to be delivering. And sometimes it also stands in the way of the amount of time they have to pay attention to what they need to pay attention to. I would not be surprised to discover that the CS Wandayi has been making the mistakes he's been making because he's busy balancing politics and something else. I mean, we truly need to have a conversation about our public servants, how they conduct themselves, and whether we are going to be serious about Chapter 6 of the Constitution or we just ignore it altogether and decide that we want something different.
Well, I also agree. I think that, you've alluded to the fact that we had, we onboarded the old manners we had before we had the new Constitution. And, the history can really teach us some things that during post-independent and throughout the regime before we got the Constitution, the political nature that we had is that a president would campaign, and once they win the seat and once the government wins the seat, he or she has all this baggage behind him that he would want to satisfy post-election. And the only way to do this was possibly to look at which particular positions are there. Once someone is sent into position and would want to reward, those who are politically, loyal to him. And, we were oblivious that once we passed the new Constitution, there were certain demands from that Constitution that compels, government of the day or appointing authority to observe certain qualifications or certain merits that should be considered in different political or rather appointment positions. Case that we have is in public service. And I think we have a problem in public service because the transition did not provide that we offload some of these particular baggage we had in public service. And therefore, you are looking at a situation where a government of the day would look at, okay, now that I get into this position, who is here that is left that has not been rewarded? And you can have a case that we had in CAS case, for example, that we had, that the court, spells itself, and you could see a number of people that were sent packing because the president wanted to get off this, to get rid of all this, baggage on his shoulders by just appointing people to unconstitutional positions. So, like Stella said, the remnants that we are still having is what is still haunting us. That until yesterday, we are seeing one of the appointment in the Kenya Revenue Authority, an individual, that was not really given a position in form of legal, that was followed in a legal way, that did not meet merit, and that did not qualify the statutory requirement of the law, including the Constitution, violation of Chapter 10 of this Constitution, and Public Service Act. So, 2 days ago, we had Aisha Juma's case as well, where even the court just pronounced itself after a petition was signed. And so many cases that we are still having. So, I think it's I agree with Stella that could we have really a conversation of, as we head to this particular, regime transition each and every time, what happens to a head of state or an appointing authority, with regards to giving political positions based on merit. I'm not saying it's bad actually to apportion. Like we said, we have people who are qualified and people who can lead that position. But in doing so, there are things that should be considered. There are merit, there are constitution, and there are legality issues that we should look at across board. I think this will guide us as a country.
Yeah.
What is wrong, if anything, with appointing people who supported you to positions of execution?
I'm glad you asked, because even as Rogo was speaking, one of the things I was thinking about is that everybody who's appointing has to appoint from amongst their friends in their circle. And so servicing patronage networks may not necessarily be the main problem, but servicing patronage networks and appointing individuals who are not competent for the task that they are being appointed for is extremely problematic. I mean, if Orogo and I formed government in the coming days, it would be very easy for us to determine that the three of you may leave Spice and become part of our communications team. You know, press service. You know, and there will be nothing wrong with that because you're qualified for what we are appointing you for. But the moment you pick an individual who has no clue about what they need to be doing in the committee you're appointing them, you have picked Gaucho from wherever you've picked him from, and you want Kenyans to believe that he's going to serve the purposes of the platform you have appointed him on. I think that's problematic. I am on record as having indicated that our president is short of qualified, good friends who can do the work that needs to be done for government.
Oh, friends, not people.
Friends, people. Let's call them friends for now, but people. You know, if you look at your circle, you should be able to find some qualified people to appoint. I mean, look at the level of people that were appointed by Kibaki. Even the former President Uhuru appointed some quality people in government. There is nothing wrong with them appointing people, but appoint them in the spaces they are qualified for. Government is big. If someone is qualified to mop, please find a place and get them.
So there's a problem, a direct one with if I was the president, if I appoint the person who beat the drums loudest for me, who is, I don't know,
Stella.
Yeah, that then is not versed in the things of education, and I gave her the position, because this is what happens, because I could be very rudimentary about it, but that's exactly what happens. That right now, unfortunately, the situation is that I appoint somebody, they go through Parliament just does the whitewash, we come up, we get the person, we go. So I give them this position as education. What you're saying is that there is a problem giving somebody the job who is unqualified in that space, even if they're my friend and they beat the drums the loudest.
I'm actually saying there is a problem giving that job to someone who's unqualified, number one. I'm saying there's something fundamentally wrong with fast-tracking the appointment just so that you can service the patronage network and ignoring the rules of the Constitution about how those kinds of appointments should be done. I am also saying when you appoint these people, one of the things that you have sacrificed on the altar of servicing those patronage networks is the services to the people. It is the integrity of that position and the fact that some of those appointments are normally for corruption purposes. If I'm going to appoint you,
she said the C word.
Well, she said it.
If I'm going to appoint you to a position, I actually want you to move certain things for me, and so I get the person who will be the most obedient.
Other interests.
Correct.
Now, the Constitution provides for one, meritocracy. It does not provide for rewarding and gifting people who really campaigned for you or otherwise. Also, the Constitution is very clear that there are checks and balances. They know that there's something you must meet, their qualifications, the bare minimums that you must hold for you to assume a certain position. By and large, there is also payment, because we pay these people. I say we need to stop calling them other names. These are our employees. We're giving you a job, execute, and you get paid. If you were in private sector, you would not tolerate having an employee that does not deliver on their targets, on their mandate. Why do we as Kenyans, because you mentioned something that the president's list falls short of the president falls short on friends. He qualified friends he can appoint.
But he has so many advisors.
I think the president's list of qualifications for you to be appointed falls short.
Doesn't exist.
Because there has to be a criteria that we say and we hold ourselves to, guided by the Constitution. This is our bare minimum. Because when we do this, we breed inefficiency, we breed incompetence, and we lose revenue, we waste taxes, lives are lost, because all these services that the government is supposed to make sure that we receive are public good. You're talking of roads, health, education. So it's not just a conversation about getting somebody into a position. I look at the impact that incompetence, that compromise of quality and qualification gives us as Kenyans and the cost. How do we turn around to say that though we will politic, though we are going to an election, though people will need to be hired, we must get it right? Because again, it affects the public policy. it affects the public good. How do we turn around?
Well, I hear two things. I hear you asking whether directing a question of citizens' responsibilities and obligation to know exactly what they need to demand accountability from the governments of the day. And I agree that you're looking at, and here I think the conversation could be that we are looking at national government, even county governments, because we probably have more problems also in county governments, with regards to appointing, very covert missions that are done in county governments with appointing and rewardees. Well, I think we bequeath ourselves with a constitution. Ideally, we had a constitution that really spells out on how every leader should be given responsibility, how they are sent to these particular positions. And the court, equally, when there is a petition that are brought before the courts, one of the things they look at is those appointments vis-a-vis the courts, because the constitution, the laws, and they pronounce themselves on that. Majorly always looking at Article 10 of the Constitution, Article 47 of the Constitution, 232 on appointments of public service. But again, the judiciary has been doing a lot of work in terms of, just saying this is illegal, and you go back and reconsider that position. You call about separation of powers. What has the executive been doing? The executive had been, the major contributor to this. And we are talking about the executive, we are talking about the presidency. For example, I need to understand as a citizen, why does the president have how many advisors so far? And what they're advising, what their advisory docket that they're advising. Number two, in terms of placement of appointments. And Stella just mentioned, I think is one of you probably who mentioned the SETO, about the Ministry of Health. I don't think it's only the Ministry of Health. There is a number of irregular appointments across the ministry. If we had to vet these ministries, then you'll find that the cabinet secretaries, whose positions are cabinet secretaries, normally they say that probably we are not. One of the things I've heard, realistically speaking, in political circle is that a cabinet secretary is just a representative. That whoever is in charge of a ministry is a principal secretary.
They run the thing.
They run the thing. So for them, their main appointing persons, their main strong persons are always the PS. They're saying that this is a person that probably is in charge of the ministry. Cabinet secretaries come and go. Another argument that I've had, probably in the political circle, is that once a cabinet secretary is given a position, he or she has a list of advisors, all right? He or she has a list of researchers, as a list of legal advisors and, in all fields. And therefore, by any nature, these particular individuals are able to perform because there are people around them who tell them how to do their work. So this has been an argument that has been there. Now, what you're saying is, does the citizens know exactly how to call for accountability in this process?
It's
which I think is a very complicated process, because it's a political process, and it is the conversation right there. It's at a level where citizens could probably think that this is an issue out of our hands, and probably the courts are the ones that are able to probably spell themselves, or litigants or civil society that has to go and question. So the place of a citizen, the place of a voter, the place of any one of us would probably look towards the judiciary in filing these petitions, probably in a protest that led to the dissolution of entire cabinet in June 2024, or towards certain processes that would call for accountability in these.
You look at let's compare public and private sector, right? If it's in the private sector, and I'm gonna throw it back to individuals in office today. These individuals run businesses out here. And in the businesses that they do run, they do not just go around picking anyone. They will look at your CV and whether you're qualified to run those positions. We're talking about individuals who are serving in public office, including the president himself. His private businesses, it is not just people who shouted most that he appoints in those businesses. There are people who have the mettle to run those businesses. You know what I mean? But Stella, when it comes to public sector, is where we can throw any Tom, Dick and Harry to sit there because for some weird reason, we are rewarding. What loss does Mwananchi get when such happen?
I'm going to answer your question, Dennis, about the loss that Wananchi gets, but I need to throw a spanner in the works around the question that Kamanya has asked. And Orogo has mentioned that there are political considerations in making these appointments. One of the things you must know is that political appointees are normally being rewarded for an excellent job on the political front.
Yeah.
They're being rewarded for being excellent mobilizers, being the person who holds foot on the ground, being the person who makes the candidate look like they have support in certain areas. So you have a CS for health because he makes the president look like he has support from Northeastern Province, and that he's able to mobilize a certain constituency in this country to vote for the president. The problem that this particular president has, that we discussed extensively when he was busy picking everyone and putting them on his train as he was campaigning, is that he had too many people that he was working with in order to get into office. It becomes easier when you have a few people and there are people that you choose.
Yeah.
When you don't have people and you have to pick anybody and anyone to legitimize yourself, one of the troubles that you're going to have is having people that are waiting for appointments anywhere because they need to reward themselves. You will be pleased to know that some of them are appointed in those positions because they need to recoup investments that they made into the campaigns. So balancing the political dynamic and the public interest dynamic is a bit complex, but it's something that must be done by every government official. Which brings me to what Dennis has said. These are businessmen. In their businesses, they promote the people who are qualified for the assignment that they're qualified for. So even if you're promoting a political mobilizer who is great at speaking in proverbs and shaking her hands and shaking her waist or twerking or whatever it is that the qualification is, while you're promoting them, at least check to confirm that they are qualified for what you're promoting them for. If you're going to promote them and you have not checked what they're qualified for, ask yourself the question that Dennis is asking us here. What is going to be the cost to the citizens? How sensitive is the sector you're sending them to? Are they able to discharge their duties, or they're just going to be sitting in the room, filling up space and not adding value to the conversation? Sometimes they may be extremely qualified for the assignment because they went to school for it, but then they have no ideas on how to improve the services in that space. I'm talking Ministry of Education, though, that you have people who are extremely qualified, actually two consecutively, and they do nothing useful for the education sector. And then you wonder, you have people like Matiang'i, who sat in that department and was able to transform things. How do you, first of all, check that people are also passionate about what you've appointed them for? How do you check for serendipity, people who will walk into those departments and do what they need to do without needing supervision from you? And people who even demonstrated during your campaign that they had great ideas.
Yeah.
I think it is extremely, extremely foolish to pick individuals who are not qualified and insist that you're going to appoint them in positions they will do nothing for. And it is extremely costly to the citizen, because every time these kinds of appointments are quashed, money has been lost. They've earned from those positions. Certain decisions that she has made have not been quashed. Justice Momwe said it would be unreasonable to quash some of the decisions she's made. So if some of those decisions are wrong, I haven't been able to vet them, so I wouldn't be here to indict her. It basically means we have to stand with them. If they're going to cost us, Kenyans will pay.
Okay, so we're going to do, just looking at that, and we're continuing our conversation because these things are important. And some of the things that rose, or rather brought rise to this particular conversation, are the happenings of this week, whereby there was a crisis, and the question was, the people in these positions, what are they actually going to do about it? So whether that speaks to competence or not is something totally different. We're going to do something a little bit different now. The president is addressing the nation, so we're going to take a few minutes to hear what it is that he has to say. I'm going to patch into that, and we'll come back in just a minute. Don't go away.
Reduced by 19 shillings and 67 cents. Diesel reduced by Kenya shillings 40.25 per litre. And kerosene was reduced by Kenya shillings 115 per litre. Similarly, during the May-June 2026 pricing cycle, the government utilized another 7.7 billion for stabilization and forwent 8 billion shillings in VAT revenue. In total, during the current cycle, the government has spent 15.72 billion on stabilization for this month of May June. As a result, super petrol prices were reduced by 15.87 shillings per litre, diesel reduced by 44.89 shillings per litre, and kerosene reduced by 78 shillings per litre. Just for context, without government intervention during this cycle, super petrol would today have retailed at Kenya shillings 230 shillings per litre instead of the 214. Diesel would be retailing at 277.75 shillings per litre instead of the current 232.86 shillings per litre. And kerosene would have retailed at 270 shillings per litre instead of the current 191 shillings per litre. Taken together, across April, May, and May-June 2026 pricing cycles, the government has spent a total of 28.19 billion on fuel price support through direct stabilization measures and tax relief interventions. These interventions have protected millions of Kenyans from even more severe economic hardship. I have further directed, after consultations with the leaders present here from the transport sector, and we had many hours of consultations with them yesterday, I have directed that in the pricing cycle, next pricing cycle, we are going to further reduce the price of diesel by a further 10 shillings for the June-July cycle to help stabilize pump prices and provide additional relief to consumers. Thirdly, through the government-to-government fuel supply framework, we have secured guaranteed fuel supplies despite global supply chain disruptions, ensuring uninterrupted fuel supply availability across the country. The arrangement has stabilized fuel pricing compared to the old spot market system, where prices fluctuated sharply every month. Before the G2G arrangement was introduced in 2023, oil importers faced intense pressure to secure US dollars within short timelines, driving rapid depreciation of the Kenya shilling and threatening fuel supply stability. By easing pressure on foreign exchange demand and ensuring predictable supply terms, the framework has protected the economy during the crisis as the one we have now. Without it, the country's situation, I tell you, would be much worse. And I want you people to talk to oil marketers. They will explain to you the kind of situation that was there in 2022 when we had a crisis like the one we have. Without a guaranteed supply, without the framework we have built, there would be a major crisis of foreign currency and there would be a major crisis of supply. The G2G arrangement has guaranteed supply even when we have disruptions, and has also made it possible for us to pay on terms that does not put pressure on our dollar reserves. I know there are those who are trying to turn this global crisis into politics. People seeking to exploit public pain for political gain, making reckless claims and pretending there are easy options. But leadership requires honesty, not political opportunism or playing populist politics. The reality is that no country can completely escape the global oil shock of this magnitude. Even advanced economies with far greater financial resources than Kenya are facing similar challenges. There are those asking government to remove all taxes and levies on fuel immediately. But we must ask ourselves honestly, if we stop collecting these revenues entirely, what public services shall we stop funding? Do we go back to the spectacle of stalled road projects that had become a hallmark across our country? Do we stop the fertilizer subsidy that is enhancing food security? Do we cut the security budget that helps us secure our borders, combat criminal gangs, and protect citizens? Surely, our hospitals and schools must continue to function, and we must continue to fund them. These are not easy decisions. Leadership requires us to make responsible decisions not only for today, but also for the long-term stability of our economy and our country. Because we do not know how long this crisis will continue, or whether prices may even rise further in the months ahead, we must act with care, responsibility, and sustainability in our mind. Fellow citizens, every nation facing this crisis is being forced to make sacrifices. Kenya too is making sacrifices, but they must be fair, responsible, and sustainable. Our responsibility as government is to solve today's problem without creating a bigger problem tomorrow. Our duty is to protect Kenyan families today while ensuring long-term stability of our economy. That is why government continues to review every possible measure to reduce pressure on citizens while safeguarding the economic stability of our country. We are engaging stakeholders across the transport sector, agriculture, industry, and business community to develop practical interventions aimed at reducing the impact on livelihoods and economic activity. This crisis is also a reminder that Kenya must never remain permanently vulnerable to external oil shocks and conflicts happening thousands of kilometers away from our borders. Therefore, the government of Kenya, working together with our East African partner states and the private sector, is determined to bring into production our oil reserves and resources in Turkana and across the East African region, alongside the development of a regional refinery to reduce our vulnerability to disruptions beyond our control. And that is why I have, in the last 6 months, engaged my colleagues in the East African region to bring all our efforts together so that we can use the resources that we have in our region to industrialize our region, but also to build the necessary resilience by having our own refinery in this region. That is work in progress, and I will be briefing the country as we move along. Equally, we are accelerating investments in renewable energy, electric mobility, modern public transport, and energy security infrastructure so that future generations of Kenyans are less exposed to global fuel instability. We must embrace electric vehicles as a first step, and the government has already ordered 3,000 electric vehicles through the Ministry of Interior for use by our security and administration officials. I am also making a declaration that the first 100,000 electric vehicles to be imported into Kenya, whether for public service or private use, will be duty-free, even as we continue to work with private sector for investors in the electric vehicle manufacturing to establish production facilities in Kenya. This is not only about overcoming the current crisis, but also about building a more self-reliant, resilient, and economically secure Kenya for generations ahead. I, however, wish to assure the country that there is no fuel shortage in Kenya. Through the government-to-government framework, under which international oil suppliers are contractually obligated to maintain consistent supply, the government is taking all necessary measures to ensure continued, uninterrupted supply and stability in the market. Fellow citizens, this situation is not permanent. We have overcome many challenges before, including droughts, floods, terrorism, and the COVID-19 pandemic, including other global shocks. Each time we prevailed because we stood together as one people. I therefore ask all Kenyans to remain calm, patient, and united. To every mother worried about tomorrow's food prices, every worker wondering how they will afford transport to work, every trader struggling to keep a small business alive, and every young person anxious about the future, I want you to know that the government of Kenya, your government, sees your struggle and stands with you. To our transport operators, drivers, and logistics workers, some of them represented by the leadership here, we hear your concerns. We respect the important role that you play in keeping our economy moving, and we will continue engaging you to find practical solutions. No Kenyan should feel abandoned at this point in time. And so, after extensive consultations with stakeholders across the transport sector, a number of critical concerns and proposals were raised regarding livelihoods, operations, and sustainability of the industry. Consequently, the government has agreed on the following measures. The Ministry of Transport will engage financial institutions and the banking sector to provide a platform for transport operators to address the financial challenges arising from the current crisis, including the possibility of temporary relief on lending terms within the sector. Many of the good people standing behind me have vehicles, transport vehicles on loan from some of the financial institutions. The government of Kenya, through the ministry, is going to engage those financial institutions so that we can seek some relief for our transport sector as we all face the crisis ahead of us. Number two, the Ministry of Transport will work together with Insurance Regulatory Authority to engage stakeholders and address concerns relating to insurance claims affecting public transport operators. There is a big issue about transport operators, despite having insurance covers for their vehicles and passengers, end up paying bills when accidents occur and insurance companies go scot-free. This is a concern we must address so that an insurance cover has to mean something when it is paid for by our transporters. I have further directed that an immediate review of both the Insurance Act and the Auctioneers Act be undertaken to conclude within the next 3 months in order to establish a more responsive and fair framework for players within the sector. The Ministry of Transport, through the National Transport and Safety Authority, will engage transport network companies and drivers operating under the digital taxi platforms with a view to immediately implementing regulations on a minimum taxi fare and resolving the long-running disputes affecting the ride-hailing sector. The people in that space sometimes work for 16 hours to be able to make ends meet. There is need for urgent regulations that have already been developed, and I have instructed the ministry to work with the stakeholders to make sure that those regulations are implemented so that we can streamline the whole digital taxi platform. Recognizing the important role of creativity and self-expression within our transport culture, I have also directed the NTSA to facilitate an enabling environment for matatu operators to continue utilizing artwork and graffiti on their vehicles in a manner that upholds safety and respect for other road users. The industry is telling me that they have been told they must remove all graffiti from their matatus. And I'm asking myself, why? The government will continue engaging stakeholders across the transport sector to develop practical and sustainable solutions that protect livelihoods and support economic activity. I therefore ask all Kenyans to remain calm, patient, and united. Let us reject division, fear, and misinformation. While every citizen has a right to express their concerns, collectively, we must reject hooliganism and all forms of violence that lead to the loss of lives, property, disrupting livelihoods, and undermining our economy. Let us use fuel responsibly, support one another, and protect our economy during this period. We will continue keeping the nation informed and doing everything possible to protect Kenyan families, businesses, and jobs. We must confront this challenge in the same spirit of unity, resilience, and national resolve that has carried Kenya through difficult moments before. Ladies and gentlemen, I know together, united, we shall overcome. May God bless you, and may God bless the Republic of Kenya. Asanteni sana. Naamini taarifa hiyo niliyotoa kwa niaba ya serikali baada ya mazungumzo na hawa viongozi wa sekta yetu ya uchukuzi ama transport. Tumefanya mkutano jana jioni wa muda, na tumekubaliana ya kwamba mahali tulipo leo kama taifa ni sote sisi tu.
All right. It's 3 minutes to 9 o'clock, and we're back into the Situation Room this morning after having assessed the situation in Mombasa, where the president is informing the nation about the I wanted to say proceeds from the meeting, Freudian slip, about the happenings after the meeting that they had with the transport sector stakeholders yesterday on the fuel crisis. Now, you've listened to this press briefing that has been given. I don't know if you heard anything about the fuel crisis, but okay. We're going to continue in our conversation. Stella and Daniel are still here. And let's take 1 minute to tell us, first of all, what you've heard. And then we're going to come back after 9 o'clock and continue this conversation. Stella, what did you hear?
I don't know whether I want to talk about what I had or I want to talk about the fact that, one, I am not united with the president on what he's saying we should be united about. I am not united with him on the assignment of bullying Kenyans into spending some more of money that they don't have, number one. I am not united with the president on making recommendations about things that have got nothing to do with fuel, talking about insurance and banks being lenient on loans. You know, something very strange happened on the screen, and I was laughing during the break because on the ribbon there I saw an announcement that gonorrhea and syphilis have hit a record high in Europe. And I was thinking to myself, this is actually mirroring what he is doing. He's talking about things that have got nothing to do with the fuel crisis. He has spent a lot of time mentioning a lot of numbers. These days I'm allergic to the president mentioning any numbers and billion next to it. And so the truth is I've not listened to any of those numbers that he was mentioning. Number two, I've heard him saying that they have put in measures, they made subsidies and everything. Those subsidies are not enough. He has mentioned reserves that I know this country does not have. Fuel reserves we don't have. We have been told we'll get fuel in time. So when we are told we will get fuel in time, it means there's nothing else that is in here. We're waiting for that one that will come in time. And so for me, I've just had a president who's telling us, tighten your belts.
Nothing is changing.
Nothing is about to change.
Okay. So, Tuesday, we were told, Daniel, that in 7 days we were going to do something. And people told that, interestingly enough, the gentlemen behind him were the ones who let us know that come Tuesday, we are going to insist that this comes down, otherwise we'll go back on strike. Maybe that has changed?
And with all due respect.
Yeah.
I haven't seen this gentleman there.
Yeah.
And it could be quite interesting to see exactly what he would have said. I don't know why. Are we trying to see him in the presser? Not there.
He's not there.
Not there. Now, I was seated expecting that I hear what the president might have said on fuel reduction.
Yep.
Absolutely. And maybe there was a leeway of hope when there were rumors going around that the industry representatives are called in Mombasa. And now I can really confirm they were actually summoned. And, you know, something might have been read to them. And they were told that this is what it's going to, probably not even told what they're going to read. You see faces, how they are reacting to this news. And I don't know what they are saying probably. Now, I hear several things. Tighten your belts. There is no change. Nothing to do with fuel reduction, like Stella said. Instead, there are issues to do with about insurances and the banks and, you know, and all these credit companies. So I don't know whether do we have a listening president?
No.
This is now my question.
Okay.
Have we learned from experience? Do we know what is coming ahead of us? So even as seated here talking about representation, what did the transport sector actually represent in this meeting?
Coming off of the heels of the presser that's been given by the president, flanked by industry stakeholders in Mombasa this morning. And we know that some of that still continues at this point where with all of this going on, I think it leaves us in a bit of a stupor because then we're wondering, okay, everybody was on tenterhooks, and the thought that was, okay, well, the president has come back after his travels and he's come back to essentially swoop in and save the situation. Maybe folks were thinking maybe another 10 shillings of a reduction.
You know,
is that what you thought, Stella, that maybe the president was going to come out and say, okay, yeah, we hear it and we see that it's difficult, and they say, okay, well, let's see what we can do and let's knock off another 10 shillings, but that didn't happen?
I actually wasn't thinking of 10 shillings. I was thinking of them reversing the price back to the price to what it was.
Okay.
Because he's just about to, and we've seen some of the recommendations that they're making on the finance bill for taxes. They're just about to take a lot more from Kenyans. And so a listening president, as Orogo was asking, would have then decided that, you know what, let's know what to do with this fuel situation so that the Kenyans don't have to carry this burden. Obviously, he's not paying attention to Kenyans. He's not listening to the Kenyans who are crying and saying, we can't afford, we are not eating, we are taking one meal a day. And that meal right now may not necessarily even be a quality meal. Yeah. He's not listening to Kenyans. When he tells Kenyans that he sees, did he say he sees or he feels or whatever?
He says he feels and he feels your struggle.
Yeah.
Does he truly feel as when he's rushing through a motorcade with fuel guzzlers? Does he truly feel as when he's busy flying around everywhere, going to do all kinds of campaigns on jets? Does he feel as when he's spending the kind of money that he spends in State House on on buying tea or whatever other entertainment that he wants to give to people. I think this government has refused to tighten its belt, but is boldly and consistently asking Kenyans to tighten their belts. I also believe that a listening president would have understood when the people are saying we have been quiet, we have not been protesting, and we are dying of hunger. Could you please leave us alone? At least leave us in our misery. I think this is the point where he should have told himself there's nothing more I can do to this Kenyan's pockets. But it's obvious there's something he's looking for. And I know from the way that speech has been delivered, that which he's looking for, he's going to find.
Tell you what,
Trouble.
this is the time when I think shutting up.
That thing, you should have won the t-shirt today.
I'd rather you don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
I'd rather you don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
Because what are we seeing? How you engage with your bank, so that usichotwe. Dawa ya deni ni kuli. We're talking about insurance, talking about accidents, so that you need to be paid off your policy and all that, right? We see your concerns. Do you understand and feel my concerns? Use petrol responsibly. A tot of fuel makes the car move, right?
Yeah.
I'd rather the president should have just been quiet.
Yeah.
And as you add to that, Daniel, it seems that so the folks who were in this meeting, there are about 15 of them. I don't assume that they were sleeping standing up in Mombasa. I don't know when they got there or how long that they've been there, but it's on somebody's dime that they're in the county having the meeting, and they must have arrived at the very least yesterday by the time the president was coming in. It's on somebody's dime. I don't imagine that they paid for themselves to go here.
I mean, definitely. It now confirms, that was said, it now confirms what has been going on in the public domain. The court of public opinion has given their verdict that probably money exchanged hands, and probably they might have been flown to Mombasa, and probably they might have get the best accommodation. Because you are going to meet the president, who was just flown in the country right away from an expensive jet, to Moi International Airport.
The guest of the state.
The guest of states. So, this is taxpayers' money, sorting out what is unsortable right now. But as you said, and we are talking about representation, and I see people who have deviated on their representation, what they stood for. Had you met these guys a few days ago, I don't think they would be probably clapping and smiling to every statement that is made by the president. The question is, who then did they represent? If the president that they had a meeting overnight can make a press statement and the three key first priorities has nothing at all to do with fuel reduction, but cautioning the transporters and their welfare against auctioning, then you ask, what was in the point? What was on the table of discussion? That definitely, it is definitely our welfare and our interests as business and our profit. And the president says that now go and use fuel responsibly. I was hoping that there would be a drastic reduction on fuel prices. This took the president, and I think the meeting sounded quite very urgent, that we have to wait for president to come. It was not just anyone to make a decision. Not the cabinet secretary, not the principal secretary, not even the guarantor of this conversation.
Yeah.
Now it is the president who was to make an announcement himself. But that's why I'm saying the magnitude of this conversation and the expectation of Kenyan is just disillusioned. And like Stella said, there's trouble brewing. And I even ask, do you listen? Do you perceive? Do you see what the country was like? This is a precursor of what we're expecting, because people will throw up their hands in the air and say, now, let it be. Liwe liwalo.
It's confusing, to say the least, because as you rightly put it, I expected that we're going to have some news that would be of relief to Kenyans. Earlier in the week, we started off with protests because the matatu sector said they were not willing to hike the fares because they knew how adversely that was going to affect the wananchi. And therefore, they tried to exert pressure on the government to manage the pump price and reduce the pain. And Kenyans stood in solidarity with them, or a huge number of Kenyans. Today, on Tuesday, we heard that their flight tickets had been booked to Mombasa and they were going to meet the president. I think the president had no business in this matter. It should have been the CS to address the subject matter, even before the president came back. We've just been talking about appointments, and people, separation of powers. I think this is a classical example on how incompetence plays out. Then the president comes and pronounces himself on the matter, and he says everything is the status quo remains. That's all I've gotten from his statement. The status quo remains. Prices will remain high. So now I want to see what the matatu sector is going to do. Are they going to continue operating with the normal bus fares? Because they have refused to exert more pressure on the government. So they should not pass on that cost to the wananchis. They should just bear the cost because they sympathize with the president, and the president can hear their struggle.
But where is it going to go, Joe? Come on.
That's why I'm saying I want to see. Kenyans. Because the outright thing is that if they dare hike the bus fares, people are going to protest. The president is calling for the people to go to the streets by taking no action.
But you see, Joe, I think it's even the bigger thing here is we talk about diesel and what it does to the economy. Now think about the transporters who are going to spend more to ferry their goods. That means the cost of living products, cost of living definitely will go up. So we're not just looking at matters to do with me being able to move, but you're looking at the cost at the shelf. Everything will go up. We've not had the president address himself to the cost of living and inflation that will be there by the result of the hike of fuel.
Right. And I don't think he's going to address himself to that because our president does not care. And there's a question that I added on to Orogo's questions during the break. Who does our president work for? He does not work for Kenyans. He easily gave up to 51% interest of the Kenya pipeline, and shamelessly told us that as Kenyans could not see the advantage that Museveni saw on the pipeline. He told us in our faces. This is a man who has proven to us that he will sell every part of this country if we allow him. If we just sit back, he will sell without conscience. Today, he's telling us that Kenyans should try and tighten their belts. We are tightening our belts so that who will benefit? It's not that we have forgotten that just the other day he told us that his cronies in the ministries of energy, EPRA and KPC were responsible for buying expensive fuel. So you fired them, or you may have actually gotten them to the ESC to investigate them, but you have not done anything to do with the fuel. It is not Kenyans' fault that we have expensive fuel. As far as we are concerned, the last time you promised us that you have gotten a deal that is going to stabilize the price of fuel. When it rises, we will still pay the same price. When it lowers, we'll still pay the same price. How is it that we find ourselves in this situation today? And you don't look troubled. As a matter of fact, when the trouble was starting, you had flown to Kazakhstan to go and do whatever it is you're going to do there, spending more of taxpayers' resources, yet Kenyans are suffering. This man does not care. Now, if matatu owners transfer that price to Kenyans, Kamanya, don't pretend on that microphone that you don't know what is going to happen. Kenyans are not going to bear it. The problem also that the president has, and this is why I said he knows what he's looking for and he's going to get it. The problem he has is that matatu fares are going to increase. The cost of commodities, the cost of services are going to increase because everything has to follow the price of fuel. Right. And after that, his able yelling CS is going to come with the finance bill. I don't know whether he's compiling this so that he can get one big strike at once, or if he has no ability to see the cliff that he's about to jump over. I also don't know if the president truly hears when Kenyans say they are fed up. I am not going to speak for anyone outside this studio today. I am speaking for myself. I am extremely fed up of a government that does not care about its people, seems to be serving the interests of people who are outside of our jurisdiction, and continues to boldly announce to us that we need to tighten our belts. We have no more belt space, and that is why I'm telling the president I'm not united with you on this one. I am not. If you're not living the struggle that I am living, if you're not living the struggle that Kenyans are living, please don't tell us that we're united in this. Don't tell us that you feel us. You don't feel us at all. You do not. And because you don't feel us, I think one of the things that you cannot afford to do is to threaten Kenyans and tell Kenyans that you're not going to tolerate anybody who's going to engage in protest and go back to the streets. You don't dictate when Kenyans want to go to the streets. Kenyans have a constitution that allows them to go to the streets anytime they feel that there's a matter that they need to address. These matatu owners do not dictate when Kenyans need to go to the streets. Kenyans have rights. These matatu owners have rights to go to the streets. As a matter of fact, if they decide to proceed back to the streets after that press statement, there's nothing the president will do.
Today,
They've said it's
page
off.
15
The
of the
strike is
Standard.
off.
They called it
Page
off.
15
They said
of
they
the-
called it off, but if they decide to go back, there's nothing he can do. This is a right that is enshrined in
Page
the
15 of the
Constitution.
Standard says 1-term and 2-term slogans mean nothing when majority of Kenyans suffer from poverty.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, everybody's making noise about 1-term and 2-term. Nobody's having conversations about this cost of living. And the truth is, the Gen Z protest in 2024 was sabotaged so that the status quo could actually come together and regain their power back over the nation. And after they've gained it, they've given us a choir that I don't know whether it's the bases that are singing 2-term and or vice versa. And so we are busy singing 1-term and 2-term, and nobody is talking about the damage that is being done to this nation. Or when it is spoken about, it's mentioned in passing, in a speech, and it's gone. While people are discussing what positions they should be given. I watched very closely at the funeral at Onyonka's home. A very hardworking man, and
Well done, Stella.
I noted that every speaker who spoke came and said this man is coming for a certain seat. When he comes, give it to him. Now, don't get me wrong. I support Onyonka's acquisition of that seat. By the way, I think he needs to be tried for governor for that position. But for me, if you're having conversations about you people getting seats in the next election, who is having conversations about that woman that the president has mentioned that he does not feel? Because if he felt that woman today, he would have reduced the cost of fuel so that the cost of commodities do not go up. Who is talking about that woman? Are we able to have these people even doing the discussions about the seats they want to take in the boardroom, but we now start having serious conversations about the suffering of people? We cannot afford to continue running this country as if the rest of the people in this country run on fuel, and it's only the president and his team that runs on blood.
Well done. What do you see in days to come? Because I doubt the matatu sector is going to shoulder the difference between the prices of the fuel. I strongly believe they are going to pass that cost to Mwananchi. I strongly believe that the industries, because remember there is also a huge percentage of the fuel, diesel, petrol that goes to industrialization, right? And also food production. So it's not just about public sector movement. It's also about driving the economy, literally. Things are going to go high or higher than they were. What do you foresee? What is the space of Kenyans now in terms of choosing to represent themselves and advocate for their rights? Because again, this is tax justice. The injustice, actually. The more you pay, the more you should receive. And there should be no taxation without representation. And this is clearly what we are seeing now. Well, what do you foresee?
Well, I think as I was concluding my remarks, I said that this is the last week's events is a precursor. It set a stage for probably what is to come. And we are a country that is highly, legit. What do we call it? People go to the street highly informed and civically aware, civically vicious. And that's why I said, do President really listen? Do he sit aside and himself and have a conversation with himself as the head of state? Look, let me assume that he might not have time to do so. Then he probably have advisors. I'm just assuming. He probably have advisors who are people that are much respected in their positions of appointment. It's a conversation we are talking about right now. Let's assume that he's not listening to them. But he gets intelligence briefs every morning, right?
Right.
Yeah, he's briefed every morning that you see the state of the nation is quite unstable. And as the nation is moving towards June and people planning to commemorate, this can sweep you under the carpet. If a president is not listening to all these structures of advice, including the conversation he had evening yesterday with these stakeholders, then I can confirm what Stella is saying, that is looking for trouble. This is a man probably that is happy when a state is sliding into anarchy because of things like this. I was just thinking, how many nations or countries have slidden into anarchy because of fuel prices? Kenya is one of them in 2026, probably in 2024, that was hidden in finance bill. His friend, Emmanuel Macron, his country, you remember the Yellow Vest movement?
Yeah.
Was a result of fuel. Ecuador, Angola,
Comoros.
These are countries.
Venezuela. The president was abducted by another
handpicked.
state.
Was picked up, abducted by another head of state. So I am asking myself if Dr. William Ruto, who is Daktari himself, reads widely, probably consult, I'm assuming Stella, how come you're not seeing all these things coming your way? And to what Kamanya is asking, I have seen someone is setting a stage for anarchy. And it is not opposition to blame. It is not civil society to blame. It is not Mwananchi to blame. It is where the buck stops with. Because when you are elected, you sign a social contract with citizens. And this is one of them, is to safeguard their interest, is to caution them through these economic hard times, is to look into their welfare. So for me, I see a week where this representative of transport sector have lost confidence with the public. And probably they're going to emerge new representation, a wider consultative conversation of how to deal with the executive that is not listening. And parliament as well.
Well, we did things a little bit differently this morning, of course, to take into consideration the state of, the address from the president this morning that he was addressing the country from Mombasa. We're going to come to a close of this conversation now because it's all a kind of wait and see, that we don't know what's going to happen next. Just by point of information, that nothing beyond the 10 shillings on the reduction of diesel has come about from this press that everybody was waiting for, and that the president has talked about the fact that there will be payment of insurance claims, or there will be conversations that the transport industry can have with banking institutions to maybe offer a moratorium on the loans that they have, for example. And apart from that, the calls for peace, love and unity from the president. And then the other piece of information is that the strike has been called off.
Yes.
That's what we've heard this morning. What will happen in the hearts and minds of Kenyans is one that we'll wait to hear. Stella Agara and Daniel Orogo, thank you very much for joining us this morning, having this conversation. A wait and see. You're not leaving with smiles as you came in, but let's see what happens as the day progresses. Asante sana, and good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.